The society believed the education of girls sinful. Even the representatives in the parliament who had studied abroad were against opening female schools. Bano Tuba Azmudeh, after countless sessions with these representatives, convinced them to allow the establishment of these schools. Although her first attempt resulted to the school being closed down after 4 days, she never gave up. Eventually, the first girls' school called Namuz was opened. After a short time, Azmudeh rapidly expanded the number of girls' schools to 6 and, in 1914, managed to enroll 3,474 female students in these schools. When we talk about girls' schools, we often think of modern schools today. However, we have never asked ourselves how the educational situation for girls was in Iran before the establishment of these new schools and how and why girls' schools were founded for the first time. After the constitutional revolution, many events took place in Iran, fostering a kind of enlightenment and progress in society. There were significant changes, and many representatives supported these developments. However, amidst all these changes, girls' schools were not established. There was significant opposition, not only in the parliament but also in society. The majority of people opposed the establishment of girls' schools, as they did not want their daughters to be educated, and considered such education sinful. They believed that their daughters should stay at home and not leave the house because entering school might tarnish their modesty. Furthermore, educators in the society of those days, towards the end of the Qajar period in Iran, were subjected to harassment and mistreatment. If people saw someone in the streets holding a book or notebook, they would often physically assault, ridicule, and insult them. Most of these newly established schools that started offering education were under attack from the public. People would break the windows and doors, damage the walls, and this issue wasn't limited to girls only. Men and boys of that era also faced such harassment and mistreatment and didn't have security in society. When the situation for men and boys in society was like this, the circumstances for girls were even worse, and they couldn't even speak about this issue. However, during that era, we still had educated women. Many girls were literate and actively learning. Typically, many of the families with higher status would employ private tutors at home. These private tutors would enter the homes of these individuals and teach reading and writing to these young girls. Whenever a political group and an influential person decided to establish a girls' school, they faced opposition from the members of the parliament. Some of the clergy at that time believed that establishing a girls' school was against the religious laws. Meanwhile, even some of the parliament members who were literate, had studied abroad, and wore Western-style clothing like suits and ties were against the idea. They would say, "Woe to a country that has girls' schools." After the constitutional revolution, there were discussions among parliament members, and some of them, like Nazim al-Islam Kamani, supported the foundation and establishment of girls' schools. Some members of the parliament joined Nazim al-Islam Kamani in this endeavor. However, there were still issues that Nazim al-Islam Kamani hadn't addressed. Those who were more attuned to the society said that our current problem lies within the society itself. If these schools are established, we must consider their security and place police officers there to ensure the safety of these girls along with their teachers, as they would undoubtedly face harassment from ignorant youth on their way to school. On the other hand, members of parliament and clerics believed that male teachers should not enter these schools, and the teachers of these schools should be female. This created a significant crisis because they didn't precisely know how many female teachers were in society and whether these female teachers could teach in a large classroom. Male teachers were more accessible but were not allowed to teach in these girls' schools. These measures were taken at a time when Iran was in a state of turmoil and upheaval, and any form of progress in society was viewed with skepticism and suspicion. Despite all these oppositions, there were groups that believed these actions should be taken as soon as possible, and certain changes should take shape in society. Many educated individuals who had studied abroad came to Iran and were constantly engaged in enlightenment activities. They did everything to transform Iranian society, right in the midst of the turmoil and conflict among members of parliament. The first steps to establish girls' schools were taken during that era. One of the free-thinking and devoted women was a person named Tuba Azmudeh. She was born in Tehran in the year 1878 into an average family. Her father, Mirza Hassan Khan, was an educated and military man. Tuba received education and schooling at home with private tutors. After completing the necessary education, at the age of 14, she married Mirza Abdul Hussein Khan Medupanj and continued her studies with private tutors, learning Arabic, French, and Persian. However, this marriage did not last long, and the couple separated shortly after their marriage. Nevertheless, after her separation from her husband, Bano Azmudeh continued her learning and literacy. She did this because the revolution was not fully realized, and society had not yet reached a state of calm. In the midst of these difficulties, Bano Azmudeh had a serious determination to establish girls' schools. Bano Azmudeh held numerous meetings with these clerics and members of parliament and tried to convince them that establishing girls' schools was in the best interest of society. She inaugurated the first girls' school in 1903, named Parvaresh, but 4 days after its opening, due to opposition and pressure from opponents, the school was closed down. Bano Azmudeh did not give up her efforts after the constitutional revolution. By incorporating religious texts and Quranic education into the curriculum alongside other subjects, she managed to gain the approval of her opponents. Eventually, the first girls' elementary school, named Namuz, was opened on Farman Ravar Street, near the Hassanabad Junction. Some members of parliament supported this school, but in its early days, the school faced several challenges. The number of female teachers was quite limited, and many of them were private tutors who couldn't establish schools, as they had maintained their previous occupations. To address this challenge, Bano Azmudeh acquired a series of educational books in various languages and on different subjects. She provided these books to the students and became a teacher herself. Despite the difficulties involved, she achieved remarkable success in this endeavor. It's essential to note that she received effective support from numerous scholars and dignitaries who were themselves committed to the promotion of education and knowledge. People like Haji Mirza Hassan Roshdi, the founder of boys' schools, and Said Javan Khan Satipwidi Badale were among those who played a significant role in this movement. Azmudeh rapidly expanded the number of girls' schools to 6 and, in 1914, managed to enroll 3,474 female students in these schools. She equipped these girls' schools with the most modern educational facilities available at that time. Prior to this, most of these schools typically had students sitting on the ground and had a more traditional setup. However, this time, she provided desks and chairs, along with a blackboard and various educational resources. These advancements continued to such an extent that, in 1929, the first girls' high school was founded by Bano Azmudeh. Many people believe that just as Mirza Hassan Roshdieh is regarded as the founder of the first boys' schools, Banu Tuba Azmudeh should also be considered the founder of the first girls' schools. Certainly, it's important to mention that before the establishment of the Narmuz school as the first girls' school, another girls' school named Dabestan Dushizagan had been founded by a woman named Bibi Khanoom Astarabadi. However, Dabestan Dushizagan faced unfortunate circumstances and didn't have a successful trajectory like Banu Tuba Azmudeh's schools. Dabestan Dushizagan was established in Mrs. Bibi Khanoom's home, and most female students would enter her house for education. However, they lacked security there and were often subject to harassment and attacks by others, even getting pelted with stones. Ultimately, the place was set on fire by the opponents. It is also said that Banu Tuba Azmudeh intended to teach at the Dushizagan school, but she faced opposition and was unable to go there to teach. Eventually, several students graduated from these schools. Among the first women to obtain diplomas from this high school, famously known as Group 1 of female graduates, were Tuba Azmudeh, for Khanoom, Faku Azami Arganon, Bibi Khanoom Kalvati, and Mehran Vasami. Besides establishing girls' schools, Banu Tuba Azmudeh also initiated advanced classes to attract older women and provide them with education. In the end, this hard-working woman passed away in 1936, at the age of 58, in Tehran. After her passing, the Narmuz school was managed for years by Tuba Meshko, and in 1940, it was handed over to the Ministry of Culture, later changing its name to Shahnaz High School. If you enjoyed this video, do not forget to like it, and share it with your friends. Do not hesitate to provide your view regarding this video by putting your comments below. Your comments would help us to improve our work, and also, they help us to take your views into account for the future topics that we select. Furthermore, you can subscribe to our channel to become aware of our new videos.